It is time, boys. It is time for us to talk about one of the most controversial shows of the fall 2023 anime season. Yes, our dating story, The Experienced You and The Inexperienced Me. The show about the girl who is not a virgin, and that apparently bugs people. I haven't honestly seen too much of it, but I do know that when the original PV released for it, there was a bit of a controversy around the comment section, mostly apparently regarding the Japanese viewers, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. It's one of those things where I think people kind of make a little bit too much out of something. This idea of a female lead character that, yes, has been around the neighborhood a bit much. The idea of the neighborhood bicycle, so to speak. But yes, is it a good show? I'm kind of mixed so far. There's a side of me that is almost struggling a little bit with some of the dialogue, but I think underneath everything there is sort of a nice message that this kind of story is telling, even though it might kind of steer a little bit too much into the usual love triangles, the boy getting the perfect girl, the Gyaru character that's obviously waifu, all that kind of stuff. But yes, let's dive into this. We open right up with Ryoto, who is an absolute geek. He's an outsider. He really, really, really likes this one girl in his class, Runa, who is basically the most beautiful girl in the entire school. She's a Gyaru, and obviously feels like he's a little bit she's out of his league. If he gets close enough to her, she's so bright and so beautiful that he's just gonna set on fire and turn to ash. Well, cut forward, the new year starts, and she is in his class as well. She seems really nice. It seems like there's a lot of emphasis on the idea that this girl is pretty much loved by everybody. She's very vocal. Everybody seems to like her. She helps people out. But again, he still feels like he's not good enough for her. Well, after he has this little punishment game with his friends, he is told that he has to confess to the girl that he likes, which he's like, I don't have anybody I like. Oh, wait. Yeah, that's right. Runa. So yes, he's fearful that he's going to lose his only friends because they feel like he needs to be shot down a little bit. He decides that he's going to follow through with it. He puts a little letter inside of her shoe locker, waits for her. She shows up. And yes, he confesses that he likes her. And she's like, all right. Yeah, that's cool. Let's start dating. And he's like, wait, she was supposed to shut me down. I was supposed to go back with my friends and that would be the end of the day. But no, they're going to be dating now. And so they decide to basically walk home from school at that point, and she invites him over to her place where they go in there. They sit down for a little bit. He decides to peek inside of her drawers like a pervert, as boys would do. And then she shows back up. They sit down, and eventually she's like, oh, I know what you want to do. I'm sorry. And she goes to start taking off her clothes. And he's like, wait, what are you doing? She wants to sleep with me. And she's like, yeah, that's what boys want to do. I mean, every boyfriend that apparently she's had, that's what they want to do. So she goes to take off her clothes. And he's like, no. We want to keep that until the time is right. And she's like, oh, okay. Well, I thought that's what you wanted. And deep in his mind, he's thinking, yes, that's exactly what I want. But I don't want to do it right now. Like, this doesn't feel right to him. So she's like, okay, well, that's fine. She goes to walk home, and before she parts, she kind of mentioned this idea that it kind of feels nice, that the idea that, yeah, he's sort of wanting to wait until it's something that she wants to do. Because she's always had boyfriends where she feels like it's a duty. She's never thought about the idea if it's something that she wants to do or not. She just assumes that's what all boys want to do. So it's kind of different for her. It feels like there's a little bit more of a commitment that's happening here. It feels more legit than any other relationship that she's actually been in. So cut forward, they're going back to school, and he's feeling like her being around him in school is a bit much. It's drawing too much attention. So he decides to tell her, let's just keep it to the weekends. And that's when she's like, okay, the date. So they go out on a date together. He's getting a lot of eyes from Runa's best friend, who just doesn't seem to like him being around her. They go on a date together, which is another thing that's kind of different for her. This idea of a boyfriend that she has for once that wants to learn more about her, see what the things that she actually likes to do, which is being a Gyaru, obviously shopping. They do some shopping together. There's a little bit of fear that he's having over this period of time, thinking that she's just kind of dragging him along, that eventually she's going to dump him, that this is all just like a game for her. But there's a sense there, obviously, from the viewer's standpoint, that it seems like he just has a lot of lack of confidence, which they kind of address towards the later part of the second episode, and the idea of why does he lack this confidence, and it's because, yes, he had a girl that he liked at some point, and he confessed to her, and she said, I just want to be friends, I'm not looking forward to that. And yes, sure enough, that girl that he confessed to shows back up. She somehow ends up being a transfer student coming into the school, which, yes, we're going to already create the love triangle that we know is not going to happen, but it's there. My thoughts so far on our dating story. So far, I'm enjoying it. It's doing enough for me that I feel it is enjoyable. It is, again, technically a very tried and true concept. The idea of the nerd boy that lacks all confidence, doesn't think anybody likes him, suddenly landing himself the prettiest girl in school, the one that he adores. And yes, that prettiest girl in school being, in all accounts, perfect. The idea that she's beautiful, she's a gyaru, she's super sexy, she wants to do anything you want to do, and at the same time is really nice. Everybody likes her. She helps people out. There's a lot of positives around this character. And yes, she's not a total idiot. She's the character that at face value, she seems like she's like everybody else, but as you get to know her, there's a lot of these aspects about her that makes her a good person. She's more than just the sum of your typical gyaru that's ditz and just wants to bang and all that kind of stuff. And yes, on the opposite end, you're seeing Roto and his inner dialogue, his inner thoughts, and the idea of his fears that she is just pretty much using him, that it's just all a game. At the same time, having those fears being around her because he doesn't feel like he's equal to her. He doesn't feel like he's enough for her, which does kind of open up a lot of frustrations in the idea that you are technically starting this relationship with her. Yes, it was started by a joke. It was started by a punishment game. But in actuality, when it actually gets to going, he doesn't really know what to do. It's as if basically he knew that this wasn't going to work. So he starts the car, gets it rolling, and then he suddenly realized, oh wait, the car's actually moving. Now I need to jump into the car and get it going because otherwise I'm going to get left behind. There is a struggle there that he's obviously having in trying to figure out if this is actually happening. Again, doubting that she's even likes him. But I think I do appreciate the idea that while a lot of the conversations around them is a little weird, it kind of gives me a little bit of vibes of something like The Angel Next Door Spoils Me Rotten. This idea of every conversation they have doesn't feel like a logical conversation two people would have. Within those conversations are nuggets of good. And like the very earlier segments when she wants to sleep with him, and again, she assumes that's the duty that she's supposed to do. If I don't do that, then the men leave me. In actuality, what's kind of happening is a lot of men are asking her out to date. They immediately just want to have her body. She assumes that's what she's supposed to do for them. And then eventually they get bored of her and walk away. She's actually very faithful to her boyfriends. She kind of points that out to him. Oh, you think that I'm not faithful? No, it's the opposite. I'm very faithful to my boys. But at the same time, you can argue that she's probably either giving it up too soon or the idea that they never actually loved her. And that's what she's sort of figuring out really quickly. Oh, maybe they just never liked me. Maybe it was never a relationship to begin with. They just wanted her body. And again, it kind of reminds me a lot of something like Higehiro. This idea of this girl that just feels like that's a necessity. I need a place to stay. And so I get with these guys. They use my body, and in return, I get a place to stay. It's that same aspect of being used and just tossed to the side that now Runa is sort of learning is not the norm. That there is men out there like Ryoto who that's not all they want. But equally, I like the idea that while he's questioning, why would you want to date me? There's a nice little added bonus there in the idea that she's kind of expressing the idea of, I'm not loose. I'm not just going to jump onto any boy. But at the same time, this makes sense in the idea that if you say that you like me, and that makes her feel good, well, let's date for a while, and I'll figure out if I like you. It's not like we have to love each other from the get-go, but there is a misunderstanding of what relationships actually are. And I think that's what we're kind of getting with this series, and if it pulls it off, it'll pull it off really well. I honestly really do feel like there is a lot in here that makes me believe that the writing could actually be really good here. Yes, putting aside the controversy of a woman with a body count. That's obviously going to be a struggle for a lot of people because people like that purity in their waifu characters. But this is a story that seems to be hitting on semi-difficult subjects. It's not a heavy show, but it is hitting on difficult subjects here, and the idea of somebody, technically both of them, not really understanding truly what relationships are. Because from Ryoto's perspective, he has zero experience in it because he tried once, he failed, lost his confidence, felt as if he was an outsider, not good enough for other people. On the opposite end, Runa has a lot of experience with relationships, but they weren't actually relationships. And so what she feels a relationship is extremely skewed. And so, again, you're having those realization points for both characters. From Ryoto's perspective going, oh yeah, this is a relationship. Like, she isn't just messing around with me. I am probably going to be good enough for this. Constantly doubting himself. On the opposite end, having Runa constantly going, oh, I thought that was normal. All men want that, and I thought I had to give it to him. I thought it was my duty. Now you're saying, let's wait until I want it, which is different. It feels different. It feels like this is actually something more than just a fling. It feels like it's something more sincere. It's not a shallow relationship in the end, which is, again, very positive message that it's kind of sprinkling throughout here. I still have my frustrations here and there with certain things, like the fact that yes, I can understand him not being comfortable at school, being very public about their relationship, that making him feel a little bit uneasy, especially with a lot of eyes on him. Somebody that's an outsider now having somebody that's constantly on him, basically kind of an introvert being pulled into the extrovert kind of environment is going to be uneasy for him. But I felt it's kind of a little bit mean to her, and the idea that we're starting this relationship and now I'm saying, stay away from me unless it's in private. It kind of feels a little bad. On the opposite end, the other kind of thing that's frustrating me right now is they're slowly introducing two concepts. One's the idea that this Maria girl from his past is showing up again. So again, obviously they're going to have this idea that she notices that he's with Runa now, and she's probably going to confess to him. Being that they're not really showing their relationship in public in school, there's a possibility that Maria won't know that he's in a relationship, but still is going to have that aspect that suddenly she pops back in his life, and he's probably going to have that frustration whether, do I go with the person that I actually fell in love with back here? Or do I stick with this relationship that I keep having doubts is actually a thing? And then you have the aspect of, you have Runa's best friend is saying that she doesn't like Ryoto, which is boggling my mind. Now, granted, the only thing that's going to save this frustration that I have is the idea that there's a possibility that Nikoru, the best friend of Runa, there's a possibility that she's the reason why all these other boys eventually leave Runa, because she pushes them away because she realized they're just after Runa's body. Now, if that's not the case, and she's suddenly being mean to Ryoto, who's like the first case of Runa having a not bad relationship, and now she could just not trust Ryoto. She could believe that Ryoto is just using her, and that he has to eventually prove himself to her. But if that's not the case, if she's actually pushing him away because of all the people that have been using Runa, she hasn't been pushing them away, but he is the one that she doesn't trust. Where the heck have you been this whole time, girl? Where have you been this whole time? If you don't trust Ryoto to be kind to her and that she sounds like she's happy, I would assume this is the first time that she's telling her friend, I'm happy for once. Where have you been this whole time? All these other people that have been using and losing her, where have you been this whole time? It is kind of one of those things like the super protective friend, but she's been non-existent this whole time, apparently. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I'm just passing prejudgment here. This could be good writing, and they'll actually explain her really well. But overall, I have been enjoying it. It's not the prettiest looking show, but it does look good. I think overall, it is a good looking show. A little stiffness to the characters every now and then when they're walking around, but overall, I think it looks solid. But yeah, I'm cautiously positive on this show. I'm looking forward to where it goes from here. Hopefully it can keep these really solid messages with relationships and what real relationships are, breaking those norms of what they think actual relationships should be. I think it's got some really positive message in here, not judging a book by its cover, but also having this idea of what is real love, how do you actually treat each other is what is important. The shallowness of just wanting somebody for their body rather than for who they are. And again, they're doing a good job of making these characters be a lot more some than your typical perfect waifu type shows that we can see a lot of. I just hope that a lot of the dialogue and conversations they have can kind of get steered a little bit more into reality. I did like the car analogy they did, this idea of like she's always wanted to be this race car, this idea of trying to be an adult, trying to grow up because her parents, even though they're divorced, apparently she had some sort of expectations to want to be like them and everything, and rush into relationships, get married now kind of thing, want to be like them. It's a little weird, but again, it's kind of what I'm seeing with a lot of the conversations in this series so far, but we'll see where it goes from here. But that's my thoughts on our dating story. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, make sure to hit that like button down below, comment. Let me know what you think of the series so far. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button to get all my content. Any news, reviews, first impressions, top list if it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you want to support the channel more, I have a Patreon link, tips link, super thanks, membership button down below. Greatly appreciate everybody that does, and y'all take care.